Hey, neighbor. I'm so glad you're here. Can I come in, please? So, remind me of your name again.
I'm the girlfriend character in every rockstar romance.
And what's going on exactly?
There are all these people out there trying to take pictures and videos of me because I'm dating this famous rock star and I didn't know that would happen.
Wow, that sounds pretty intense.
I just got a notification on my phone. My boyfriend just been spotted with his ex, another famous singer, and I think they might be back together.
That's rough.
He wants me to go on tour with him and I can't. And why can't you tour? I don't know. Reasons? None of them are very good reasons.
Okay.
Oh, hold on. I'm getting another notification. Yeah, this is a post about me. I'm just gonna go ahead and read all the comments.
I wouldn't do that.
These comments are really upsetting. I didn't realize that despite the fact that everyone told me that they would be.
Okay. Hi, my name's B. Welcome to my channel, Mama Needs to Read Romance, and try to understand these rock star girlfriends. I got up to so much in February, you are not gonna believe it. I can't wait to talk to you about these. But like I said, there's a lot, so I'm gonna try to be brief. Let's talk stats. I read 17 contemporary romances, 6 hockey romances, 2 historical romances. I know, only 2? What happened? It's the hockey. 2 paranormal romances, 2 alien romances, 1 fantasy romance. 6 of these were ARCs, or advanced readers copies. 2 of these were rereads for a total of 30 books. 30 books! That's too many books! Why so many books? I have no idea how I read that many. There were some novellas, and also my daughter was sick, and all she wanted was for me to hold her, so I read while I held her. New to me authors included Jasmine Guillory, Jason B. Dutton, Anita Kelly, Savannah Scott, Lindsay Hameroff, Courtney Walsh, Jenny Proctor, and Violet Marsh. I read 3 5-star books, 7 4.5-star books, 3 4-star books, 5 3.5-star books, 6 3-star books, 2 2.5-star books, and 4 2-star books. Oh, my first 5-star, Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. I just adored this so much. We have a cinnamon roll hero who's one of the yummiest, cinnamoniest, rollest heroes ever. And our heroine who has a one-night stand and finds out that she's pregnant. Well, she's trying to navigate life with him, what she's going to do, as well as dealing with her friendship with Shep. He's been friends with her forever, and he helps support her as she is trying to navigate pregnancy. Also had incredible levels of emotion. The tension, the slow burn were top notch. This had the spice. I went crazy about 75% in. This was everything. It gave me all the feels. I was whooping and cheering. It was phenomenal. Cara Bastone is an exceptional writer. I'm telling you, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Go find the book, open it to any page, read that page. And if you're not enchanted by most of the sentences, I mean, every sentence was incredibly written. This took her years to write. You can totally tell. This is my favorite Cara Bastone of all time. And I really like Cara Bastone. So, I can't recommend it highly enough. Another 5-star for me was He's So Not My Valentine by Savannah Scott. This popped up on my Kindle recommended page, I guess because it was Valentine's Day, and I hadn't really read much in the way of sweet romances, but I'm so thankful I did because I enjoyed it so much. Yes, this is closed door. Actually, I guess it doesn't really need a door. It's primarily like little touches and kisses and oh my gosh, but Renee, our French hero who comes to this small town in North Carolina and sweeps this single mom who's got all these worries and cares, sweeps her right off her feet. He sees her for the diamond that she is. It was beautiful. I loved it. I really did experience tension towards the end because it was like, how are they going to make this work? What's going to happen? The twist was terrific. It had a very satisfying ending, and I am down for more Savannah Scott reads in the future. I'm so excited. So this gave me so many swoons and just the kind of romance I needed. Another 5-star read for me was a reread, and here's the deal though. I actually moved it down from 6 stars to 5. This was my 3rd read through of this book, and it got to a point where I was not always pleased with the way our heroine dealt with the hero. I do have compassion for her. I understand the way she was raised, but our hero is such a gorgeous, gorgeous cinnamon roll hero. How many times have I said cinnamon roll so far in this video? Anyway, it's true. Can you tell I have a type? She doesn't always treat him as well as I would hope because he lays down everything for her. We have two people from different worlds. A doctor who lives in the big city and a guy who is the mayor, an honorary title really, for a small town. They're both very much enmeshed in their own worlds. They can't really escape them. He's also 10 years her junior, which I found to be interesting, but they cannot deny their chemistry. Her life is kind of a mess though. In a way his is too, but she has some major issues that she needs to deal with before she can really let Daniel into her life. Again, we've got this incredible slow burn. We've got the cutest dates. I fell so hard for Daniel over and over again every time I read this book, and the ending just makes you want to cheer. This book is one of my top books of all time, even though it's now a 5-star as opposed to 6. Still a favorite. And what was that? You need to see my Steambox cover? Okay. Daniel and Alexis. And there's actually a scene like this. The town is like magic. And at a certain point, we see that the petals are coming off of the trees and floating around them. By the way, I'm sorry for my fingernails. My 4-year-old did my nails. So if you want to know a good 4-year-old manicurist, I have a name for you. And then we have the cutest dog and the cutest goat in the land. Oh my gosh. So much fun. I love that they included this in the back of the cover. Another reread that I was really excited about was The Deal. I love me some hockey romance in the wintertime. And The Deal was just tremendous. We have Garrett and Hannah. He needs her to tutor him and he finally wears her down and they develop a friendship that soon becomes more. Garrett helps Hannah with a certain problem in the love department. And through that, they discover just how deep their attraction is. I loved seeing the two come to one another's aid. This was deep, emotional, fun, spicy, everything you could want from a hockey romance. You've heard me talk about this one a number of times, The Exception to the Rule by Christina Lauren. This was my favorite of all 6 of the novellas that I read as part of the Improbable Meet Cute series written by 6 powerhouse authors. We have a teenage boy who accidentally emails one of the girls at his school thinking that she's his teacher. He happens to email her on Valentine's Day and she says something like, "Oh, it's the only email I got on Valentine's Day." And after that, they make sure for 10 years that they always email each other on Valentine's Day. We see their lives change over the course of the 10 years, and eventually the two of them decide that maybe it's time to meet in person. There were twists in this that I did not see coming, and then once I did, I couldn't wait to see what else would happen, but I really, really enjoyed this novella and hope that you can either experience it on Kindle Unlimited or Audible. How You Get the Girl was my first experience with Anita Kelly. What a beautiful author. She reminds me of Chloe Leese in that she's all about compassion and empathy, understanding where a person is coming from, meeting them where they are at, loving them through their pain, through their struggles, through their strife. And I found that in spades in Anita Kelly as well. This is the 3rd book in the Nashville Love series. I hadn't read the other 2, but I've heard great things about Love and Other Disasters and Something Wild and Wonderful. I really enjoyed this book, and I know I would have liked it even more had I had the experience with the other 2 books because the characters from those first 2 books are so prominently featured as members of the ensemble cast of this book, and I love when they do that. The support that they offer to one another as they're going through things was absolutely beautiful. We have a gal who is trying to figure out who she is, and then she is confronted with her old crush. This is a woman who was a star of the WNBA, navigating life as a regular person while also being the foster parent of a teenage girl who winds up on our other heroine's basketball team. Well, the 2 of them wind up teaming up to support the team and discover that they have some feelings for one another. I loved the slow burn. I loved watching the 2 of them work through struggles together to be there for one another and just to love each other. It was beautiful. I loved it so much. I'm really looking forward to trying more Anita Kelly in the future. Another arc that I really enjoyed in February was Switched by Sarah Reddy. This was book 2 of the Ghosted series, and it features a hero and heroine who have a one-night stand and then discover upon that moment that their chemistry is so strong, it is love at first sight. He's excited, she is not excited. She wants to focus on her career and fears losing herself entirely in another man. She cannot let him in and then discovers that they're going to be working together. So they try to navigate that that until one night in their lab, there's a storm and they switch bodies. They've been avoiding each other with everything they have, but they can't avoid each other anymore, and they literally have to walk in one another's shoes. I found this to be endlessly entertaining, inventive, emotional, spicy. It was tremendous. It's only a little bit spicy, by the way, but it was tremendous, and I cannot wait to read more Sarah Reddy. The next book in the series, Fated, about a woman who falls in love with a man she only knows in her dreams, is coming out this summer, and I can't wait. It's going to be amazing. In February, I read the second book of the Rokesby series, which is the prequel series to Bridgerton. I enjoyed it so much, which is of course why I gave it 4.5 stars. We have a woman who fell in love with our hero via letter. Unfortunately, though, her brother disappears. So she travels all the way across the ocean to the colonies to try to track down her brother, but finds the man that she had been writing letters with. When she discovers the gentleman she fell in love with, he is unconscious. And she tells everyone, so that she can stay with him, that she's his wife. He wakes up with amnesia and then believes her. I was on the edge of my seat for so much of this book, waiting to see what would happen, when he was going to find out that they weren't really married, what he was going to do. This book was spicy. The love scene was so good, especially the first one. Oh, it was so emotional. It was so dear, but also heartfelt, and it made me chuckle. There was humor inside as well, which I just adored. I highly recommend the Rokesby series, so if you're thinking about reading it, do it. You'll love it. Another book I gave 4.5 stars to was Haven by S.E. Wendell. This is book 2 in the Broken Wings duet. I couldn't wait to see what Belle and Lena were going to do now that they'd escaped the prison and were off with her squire Alex. As with other S.E. Wendell books, we are treated to a road trip that's so atmospheric. You really feel like you're there. There's plenty of spice. It was so emotional. I swooned so hard. I adore these two characters who have such courage and honor in their hearts. The way they carry themselves, the way they sacrifice, almost to a point where it's like, please stop doing that. But it's so beautiful to watch them together. I'm not even usually a fantasy person, but I am 100% a fantasy person for this author. She has literally become an auto-buy author for me. And I'm very excited to re-announce, if you saw my TBR video, that I'm going to be having her on my channel. This month, we're going to do an interview, and I cannot wait to talk to her all about her characters in these books. They're just beautiful. Just beautiful. Now I'm going to talk to you about Legacy, which is book 5 of the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy. This is a collection of 4 novellas that features couples from the previous 4 books in the series. I didn't know if I would like this because I loved the first book, but second, third, and fourth for me were just sort of middle of the road. For me, I need more emotion in my love scenes, but I know a lot of people that love this series. Here's what's so interesting though. This book, Legacy, elevated the entire series for me. I feel like if I went back and read this whole series again, I would probably give every book at least like a 1-star higher rating, because you see these characters now wholly devoted to one another. You see the love, you see the emotion. I love seeing how they'd matured and changed over the course of 4 years. We also see a lot of the characters that I'm assuming are in the Briar U series, which is another spin-off series, but I had the best time. I laughed so hard. There's a certain plot arc that goes through all 4 of these. It's just so fun. But there is an elopement, there is a wedding, there is an engagement, and there is a baby. So it was so much fun. And I highly recommend this entire series because by the time you get to the Legacy, the payoff is just immense. Who would have thought? What a cool series. I'm trying to get my bookshelves to look like less of a mess as I'm pulling books out. Things to work on. Anyway, let's talk about Twilight. I gave this 4 stars. This was obviously a reread for me that I did for my read along. And I really enjoyed rereading the book, watching the movie again, listening to the soundtrack. I hadn't reread the book in quite a few years, so there were a number of things that I completely forgot about. You're probably familiar with this plot, so I'm not going to go into it. It was a compelling romance between a vampire and a human girl with an interesting ensemble cast and promises more craziness the further you get into the series. I wish this book had been included in the Improbable Meet Cute series because it would have been perfect. Love Letters by Sarah Reddy. I bumbled across this the other day on AnyPlay. It was about an hour long. I listened to it in one sitting and it was so much fun. We have a woman who is in a park one day, finds a library book, and inside the book is a letter written by a guy to someone. And she realizes while reading this letter that this is her perfect man. So she figures out a way to pass notes back and forth to him via library book. And over time, they wind up separately experiencing parts of New York City. I loved the twist. There was also a generous helping of spice that felt pretty natural in such a short book, but it was a lot of fun. And if you enjoyed the Improbable Meet Cute series, I definitely think you would enjoy Love Letters by Sarah Reddy. I also got a chance to read the short story All Roads Lead to Here by Abby Jimenez, which is a story featuring a couple we hear about in Part of Your World. I didn't know who the couple was for a good bit into this story, and it was really fun figuring out who they were. I love that we didn't know. My biggest issue with it was that it was too short. I'm going to be doing an Abby Jimenez deep dive video in the near future, and I can't wait to geek out about all the little Easter eggs that she leaves in her books. Oh my gosh, it's so fun. Drop, Cover, and Hold On is the novella by Jasmine Guillory, which was within the Improbable Meet Cute series. I was thoroughly enchanted by this. We have a woman who thinks the baker that she visits almost daily hates her guts. And one day they are stuck together in an earthquake. And you realize quickly that maybe he didn't dislike her as much as she thinks. This is very short, and there still happens to be time for spice. It was a fun little short story with forced proximity, grumpy sunshine, it's always been you, but it was fun. Let's talk about book 17 in the Ice Planet Barbarian series, Barbarian Seduction. This felt like more of a novella. There wasn't a whole lot of plot. Most of it is Marlene, our French gal, and Zenek, our big hunky alien, getting down. However, the last 25% really brought things full circle. We're actually treated to a flashback for the majority of the book. They're from the very first crew, way back in the beginning of the series that we never really got to experience. So it was really neat getting to go back and do that, as well as experience Marlene's love for her mother who's passed on. She experiences her mother everywhere, and the way that they brought that back towards the end of the story actually brought a tear to my eye. It was emotional, but most of it was just love. So yeah, 3.5 stars, good time. Ready for more Ruby Dixon. Another 3.5 star for me was Soraya Wilson's Royal Valentine, which was part of the blah, blah, blah. I've said it too many times. Anyway, I had a good time with this. If you're a princess at heart and like reading about princesses that are undercover or in hiding or having a secret identity, you're gonna love this. If you would love a staycation, basically, where you get to sit and read about going to Rome and eating Italian food and drinking wine and dancing with a handsome Scotsman. Yeah, I said it, a Scotsman in Italy. It happens. I recommend this. It was fun. It didn't feel super realistic, but yeah, it was a good time. Oh, Till There Was You by Lindsay Hammeroff. Oh, this book. A lot of this book was great. I loved, oh my gosh, the beginning and the ending were incredible. If I could rate a book just on the beginning and the end, it would have been 5, maybe even 6 stars. The way these two characters meet, he is so handsome. He's playing guitar. She's just sort of there and he starts singing. It was so hot. And then they decide, because they have this chemistry, they're going to go out on the town together. It's incredible. And then they end up having a one-night stand, which I don't even normally like. Oh, I can't give it away. It was really good. But he has to leave and go to LA because he's about to potentially get a record deal. She, meanwhile, is trying to get a job in New York City as a chef. She gets a job, and after a period of time, about a year, our hero comes back after having written a song about her that has climbed the charts. He's now huge. He's like John Mayer because of this song. And he's back and he wants some time with her. But is she willing to give it? And what does that mean for her career? This is where it drove me crazy. And this is where I marked it down. There's scene after scene that's so swoon-worthy that she ruins. That was a little frustrating for me. Her insecurities really get the better of a lot of these scenes. It was still a really good story. I loved the ending as well. Yeah, so close to perfection. I wanted to dip my toe in sweet romance this month. Also, I love free books. So when Jenny Proctor sent in her newsletter a link to a free novella, I was like, yes, please. And one night I had a little extra time. This is one of those times where my daughter wasn't feeling well. So I was like, this is perfect. So I wound up reading A Little in Love with You. It was a good time. I didn't always love the heroine. She said a few things, especially in the beginning, that I found sort of off-putting. But our hero was very much a cinnamon roll. The problem is the setting. She's a labor and delivery nurse, and he is there with his sister who is about to give birth. No one explains that he's the brother. Our heroine believes that he's the father. So she finds it to be very off-putting that he is calling out the attraction that they feel to one another, that this poor nurse is kind of kicking herself over. It was short and sweet. I had a good time, and I'd like to read more Jenny Proctor in the future. I read The Alien's Prize, which is book 1 of the Warriors of Lyrixia, for the Beam Me Up Book Club in February. And I had a really good time attending the live show. I just adore Tiffany and Avery. I enjoyed the live show maybe a little bit more than the book. I had a problem with our alien male here because he wasn't always honest with our heroine, which I had a problem with. In fact, a great deal of the plot hinges on the fact that he lied to her. I did enjoy the slow burn. I thought he was gorgeous. The story kicks off right in the action. She is on an auction block. Our hero wins her and says we are fated mates, and she's not super excited about that. It was nice to read Zoe Draven. I really wanted to try that. So yeah. Rosie and the Dreamboat was Sally Thorne's offering in the Improbable Meet Cute series. And I found this to be fun and different. We have a woman who's at the spa with her sister when she gets stuck in like a pod that's filled with water, which sort of made me feel claustrophobic. But a firefighter comes to sort of break her out of this pod, and it takes a while. And while they're waiting, the two of them start to develop an attraction for each other through this pod when they can't even see one another. There was a fun, neat twist at the very end that I just loved. But yes, it was very different, which is what I'm learning Sally Thorne is all about. Okay, so let's talk about Bride by Allie Hazelwood. Oh man. It seems like you're in one camp or another. And what I will say is this. It was not my thing. It really kind of bothered me. You know, it's so funny. I've read werewolf shifter romance in the past, even really spicy ones, a la Juliet Cross. And I thought that was as spicy as it got. But then we get to something else entirely with Bride. I just wasn't prepared. It just wasn't for me. I'll say that. I appreciated the humor. However, for me, there was something missing. There was an emotional element that I didn't quite see. And while our hero was a good guy, I found him to be a little too remote. I know that he had his reasons, but I never felt the payoff that I felt with her other heroes in her other books, where you really get a sense of who they are and how they feel. He just always felt aloof to me. Like I couldn't quite get a read on him. And our heroine was funny, but she wasn't quite as endearing as some of the other characters that I've experienced in the past. So I really did enjoy the story where you're trying to figure out the mystery. We have a vampire who winds up marrying a werewolf shifter in order to keep the peace between their two species. However, there's some other things going on. She's desperately looking for her very best friend who has been missing and seems to have a link somehow to werewolf shifters. As the story wears on, there are some things that happen that lead us to believe that someone is not who they seem. There is an enemy with his or her own agenda. I know quite a few people that have already said they're excited about the next book. She definitely sets up another book in the series. However, I don't think I can read it, especially if the love scenes are like these. I don't think I can do it. Maybe you guys could read it and just tell me which chapter to skip. Let's talk about The Worst Wingman Ever by Abby Jimenez, which was, guess what? You'll never believe, her offering for the Improbable Meet Cute series. I enjoyed many aspects of this. We, again, as usual, have a cinnamon roll hero in an Abby Jimenez tale. She's dealing with the dying and death of her grandmother during this short Valentine's Day novella, which was really heavy, but I found it to be adorable how we start off with our hero puts a note in our heroine's windshield thinking she's someone else, and the note was pretty inappropriate. And he then realizes his mistake, apologizes via more notes in her windshield. They wind up passing notes back and forth and develop an affection for one another that is eventually realized in the end of the story. So it was fun and it was deep, but it was a little bit rough. So if you haven't figured it out by now, I read the entire Off-Campus series in the month of February. And The Goal, which is book 4 of the Off-Campus series, was 3 stars for me. I can't say that I actually enjoyed it as much as I was really engaged by it. I found it to be a very compelling story. I didn't particularly care for any of the characters. Sabrina just wants a fling, and she has a terrible, terrible home life with an awful stepfather and a not very nice grandmother. And then we have Tucker, who I was really hoping to adore. I mean, I do like Tucker. He is the guy that took care of the other guys in the house in the first 3 books in this series. He's a smooth talking southerner who decides that he really wants to go for it with Sabrina after they have a one-night stand. And unfortunately, this one-night stand has produced a surprise baby. So they try to navigate it. It feels a little hollow in my mind because there's not the emotion there. They're not willing to let themselves feel it. The book really changes as time goes on. We start out in college and wind up with them having jobs. They have a baby. Ultimately, I found this to be a really impressive work by Elle Kennedy. She's trying to tie up all the loose ends from the first 3 books. She's trying to introduce new characters that are going to be featured in her spin-off series, Briar U. And the other thing I found fascinating was this book, the events overlap with the events of book 3. We're seeing them from a different perspective now, which was really fascinating. It really brings more of book 3 to light and made me appreciate the events of book 3 even more. And then we move into the future. So I was really impressed with how well Elle Kennedy was able to stick the landing with these sticky topics, all of the different overlapping of the different books and characters. I thought she did an excellent job. But yeah, in terms of like enjoyment and emotion, it did fall flat for me, which is why I gave it 3 stars. I tried out Courtney Walsh for the first time this month. Again, trying out sweet romance really for the first time. This is book 1 of Holidays with Heart. It was also recommended to me by my Kindle because it seems to know that I enjoy seasonally themed romance. The next book in the series was actually just published at the end of February, and it's called My Lucky Charm, which I started and then DNF'd because she literally brags at the beginning about trying to make the grumpiest grumpy hero ever, which is really not for me personally. But if you're into that and you like sweet romance, I would certainly go for it because I found Courtney Walsh to be hilarious. I really enjoyed the beginning of this story where our heroine, who's down on her luck, sort of getting bullied by an old high school friend in line to get coffee, says, "Oh yeah, I have a boyfriend now," and just sort of grabs onto the arm of the guy in front of her, who turns out to be a famous, incredibly handsome hockey player who's willing to play along. I loved that. I didn't always love the way they interacted. I found her to be a little bit abrasive. Courtney Walsh gives both of these characters not 1 but 2 big obstacles to overcome and work through as the story evolves. So there's a lot of work that these characters are doing, more so than the romance element. I think our heroine probably got more FaceTime with her own sisters than she did the hero, but eventually we are treated to an adorable ending. Again, we have a book where the beginning and the end were really phenomenal, but then a lot of the beginning sort of sagged for me. So I'll try Courtney Walsh again, but yeah, this one was a good middle of the road for me. So Ashley Poston also provided a novella for The Improbable Meet Cute, which only has 6 books, believe it or not, considering I've mentioned it like 5 million times. We have a gal named Audrey who has the unfortunate luck of being the last kiss with someone before they meet their soulmate. Our heroine is about to be in a wedding as the best man, and the maid of honor is actually a guy who winds up having to help her try to track down the groom on the day of the wedding. As they backtrack and go through the previous night, which was full of drunken debauchery, certain things are revealed about the relationship between our maid of honor and our best man. But I did appreciate the way that it felt like the good old 90s rom-coms. It was entertaining for sure, but I didn't find myself particularly fond of any of the characters, so meh. So let's talk about the score, which is book 3 of the Off-Campus series. This is basically a classic example of matching the wrong book and the wrong reader. As I mentioned, have a hard time being excited about a book that features a lot of emotionless, hooking up, as well as gratuitous drinking and drug use. I had a very hard time liking Dean, who is a womanizer, basically been with every woman on campus, and then he starts hooking up with Allie after being told by everyone not to do that, but he can't keep it in his pants for one night. She needs a rebound, and she's actually very adventurous as well as Dean. So I appreciated how they were matched in terms of their adventurous, loving sides, if you see what I'm saying. I feel like I often see in these types of books where the girl is the damsel, of I don't know anything and teach me and all that. But I really appreciated how they both went for it. They were well matched, as I said. I appreciated that Dean grew by the end of the story. And as I mentioned earlier, book 4, which has events that occur at the same time as this book, helped me appreciate this book more later. It's amazing how with this series, as I mentioned from the beginning with the legacy, the further you go on, the more deeply you start to understand these characters and you develop more of a fondness for them. Upon a reread, I think I'd probably elevate this, knowing everybody better and also knowing where it ends up. But as I experienced it the first time, for me, it was very much middle of the road. So this is a book I really wanted to love, How to Dance by Jason B. Dutton. This one is written by, I think it's called Own Voices. Our author actually has cerebral palsy, and he wrote his main character with all of the same challenges that the author himself experiences or has experienced. This story is about a woman who loves to dance, and she teaches our hero to dance. The story is sold as a beautiful love story in which both of them get to find the fire inside of each of them. They work through some emotional trauma, and those things are true. But for the most part, I found this book to be sad and frustrating. I hope that this book was very cathartic for the author because there were quite a few scenes that were very upsetting. There's a lot of mistreatment of the characters by each other. There was a lot of anger, a lot of frustration. Many of the scenes that even if they started out beautiful and sweet devolved into something really upsetting. It was a little upsetting for me as a reader to read so many derogatory terms used for cerebral palsy or a person that has different abilities. This was not the compassionate, empathetic book that I was hoping that it would be. It does have a nice ending, but it was really light on romance and heavy on people trying to work through suffering and find acceptance. A deep read nonetheless. Let's talk about The Mistake, which is book 2 of the off-campus series. This wound up being dead last in my estimation. Again, there just wasn't my thing. We have a guy named Logan who seems to, over the course of the book, wander around campus, find himself in different people's rooms, and then depending on the interests of Logan and the people that he bumps into, he's either going to have relations with them or he's just going to play video games with them. I didn't really understand him. I appreciated the epic ending they attempted, but for the most part, this really fell flat for me. I think the biggest highlight for me in this entire book was the reference to Drew Baylor, who is the quarterback of the football team in the Game On series by Kristen Callahan and is featured in the first book, The Hookup. It was so cool to see Elle Kennedy's world collide with Kristen Callahan. We have a guy who gets with everybody, and he one night encounters a freshman. He's like a senior. She allows him to do some things to her and she doesn't finish, if you get what I'm saying, and it really bothers him. So he comes back to find her and finish what he started. She develops real feelings for him, but he has a crush on someone else and then decides, oh, maybe I don't. And he tries to win her back and she says, well, you're gonna have to jump through some hoops first. I didn't find the hoops to be all that compelling. I mean, it was fun in places and I'm glad that they fell in love, but yeah, I guess I'm not the target audience. This couple might have been my very favorite couple in the legacy. Reading that makes me want to elevate this book later on, but this was my experience when I first read it. As I mentioned earlier, I can't pass up a free book. So Elle Kennedy's website has bonus extras, and I downloaded the free novella, The Incident, which details some of the very first night between Dean and Allie, the couple that I mentioned earlier, from this book. I just had to read it because, one, I wanted to know how much of their first encounter dealt with being drunk. I wanted to know how in their right minds they were. The other thing is, again, free book. A little more information, I had to try it, and it was just me. but I paid nothing, so. My final offering is Lady Charlotte Always Gets Her Man. This book was just published, and for me, it was kind of a slog. The plot was interesting. We have a woman who is trying to determine if the man she's about to marry killed his first 2 wives. And the man's brother kind of has feelings for her, and he's willing to help her find out. So there's mystery, there's excitement, but this writing was so hard to get through. This author, I don't know if she's trying to attempt to make it seem more authentic to the Georgian period in England or what, but I found myself looking up so many words and I'm like, how am I so confused so much of the time? I know words. I know lots of words, but I mean, it was just, the writing was so dense and it was so difficult for me to really enjoy any of the fun of this novel. Don't let that deter you. If you think the plot could be interesting to you, give it a whirl, see if it's your thing. Well, those were my books. What did you enjoy in the month of February? Leave a comment. I know we'd all love to hear it. And for those of you that just want to leave an emoji, I've seen people do this before. I've always wanted to do it myself. If you've made it through this whole video and you just want to leave a little emoji, send me a heart, would ya? Any color you want. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're enjoying whatever it is you're reading, whether it's part of the Improbable Meet Cute series or not. Until next time, thanks so much. Take care. Bye.